Can a simple flat background change the fate of an entire Formula One team? Ferrari believes yes. But is this update enough to save your 2025 season? What seemed a year of redemption for Ferrari, after a 2024 season that marked its best result in more than a decade, has become a nightmare of inconsistencies. The arrival of Lewis Hamilton had lit the illusions of millions of tifosi and Paddock himself, who saw in the pair with Charles Leclerc one of the most powerful of the 21st century. However, this power on paper has not translated into solid results on the track. The reason? A difficult car to understand, unpredictable and sensitive to any variation in the environment. From the first race in Australia, the symptoms of the SF25 were exposed. The car fails to extract performance consisting of classification. There is a repeated pattern. While other equipment manages to place the tires inside their operating window after a heating return, Ferrari suffers. The car does not respond with the expected precision, nor does it allow the pilot to attack the curves with confidence. This has generated that even the most aggressive attempts end with critical loss or losses of time. The problem is not exclusively balanced, although this has also been mentioned, but of lack of correlation between the simulator data and what happens on the track. Ferrari has a car with some potential, as evidenced by the race when the compounds are in its ideal operational zone, but access to that performance is volatile, almost capricious. The SF25 platform is not predictable, it is not reliable, and in modern Formula One, that is a conviction. Lewis Hamilton, with all his experience and ability to adapt to complex machines, has needed more time than expected to feel comfortable. He has changed his piloting style, trying to imitate the Leclerc approach in curves management, but even with that, the differences in the car make their adjustments work only sometimes. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, has learned to survive the SF25, but that is not the same as tame it. Its piloting has been defensive, almost reactive, and that in a category where the margins are millimeter, is unacceptable for a team that aspires to titles. Frédéric Vasseur, the team leader, has been blunt in his statements. The problem is in execution. That is, not in the lack of gross development, but in how technical solutions are implemented and adjusted in real time. He has talked about a team that is not extracting or 90% of the current package. This has led to a growing tension within the equipment. Internally, where is evident. Mechanics, engineers, pilots, everyone feels that they have pieces of the puzzle, but not the complete image to assemble it. In the heart of modern engineering of Formula One, the flat background has become much more than a simple structural base of the car. It is, in reality, the key component in the generation of aerodynamic load under the rules of the current soil effect. And Ferrari knows it. Therefore, what is preparing for Austria is not an incremental evolution or a minor test. It is a break with the approach that SF25 has defined since its birth. This new flat background that will be installed in the Red Bull Ring is born from a complete revaluation of the aerodynamic design of the car. Maranello engineers have chosen to intervene in Venturi channels, which are the most critical area of the soil effect. These channels, responsible for accelerating the air flow below the car, generate a suction that literally hits the car against the asphalt. Until now, Ferrari was not maximizing this phenomenon. The data revealed areas of persistent turbulence, high-speed instability, and a car trend to lose adhesion in long curves. Problems that not only subtracted efficiency, but also generated wear peaks in rear tires. The solution has been drastic. The Venturi channels have been extended, redesigned the diffuser contour and the lateral cavities to better direct the air towards the critical areas. The goal is one: stabilize the rear train. Because a car that suddenly loses its grip in fast curves cannot be piloted with confidence. And if the pilot does not trust his car, his attack margin is reduced by half. But that's not all. The flat background also incorporates subtle adjustments into the external edges, areas that interact with the vortices generated by ailerons and body. These details, barely visible to the unreasonable eye, are essential to close the airflow in a clean way, minimize energy losses, and maintain a constant pressure platform. By better align the aerodynamic pressure center with the car center, Ferrari seeks unprecedented stability so far, both in braking and acceleration. It is also speculated that this modification will be accompanied by a revision of the rear suspension, which makes all the meaning if we understand that a new flat background drastically alters the dynamic behavior of the car. Change the distribution of loads, the vertical forces, and consequently, the demands that the suspension receives. An error in that integration can throw all the previous work by land. That is why Maranello has allocated an exclusive simulation team in Ferrari to test this configuration to counter-relish, with real-time data sent to the base by its dynamic banks. This flat fund is not just an aerodynamic tool, it is a declaration of intentions. Ferrari wants to send a clear message to his rivals, his fans, and above all, herself. They want to leave behind the technical passivity of previous seasons. They are willing to take risks, because it is no longer just about adding points, but about recovering the competitive dignity of the most historical team in the category. And like any ambitious movement in Formula One, this change also involves a colossal risk. If the new flat background does not work, not only will the car not improve, but could destabilize it even more. But if they succeed, if they manage to transform that unstable base into a solid performance anchor, they could fight again in equal conditions with McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull. Austria will be your laboratory, and also, potentially, his rebirth. The circuit located in Spielberg offers a perfect and at the same time ruthless scenario to test any aerodynamic innovation, and that is precisely what makes the debut of the new flat background have such a strong symbolic load. The Red Bull Ring is a short, high-speed track, but with technical sectors that require traction and stability to the same extent. Curves 3, 4, and 6 test the car's ability to keep grip and strong braking, while the third sector demands aerodynamic efficiency to generate speed without compromising stability. In other words, it is a circuit that nakes the weaknesses of any poorly balanced car. Just the Achilles heel that Ferrari has dragged since the first race of the year. For Ferrari, this race is not played only in the chronometers. It is also played in the narrative. Because if the new flat background works as expected, it will allow the team to take a qualitative leap just before entering a critical phase of the championship. Silverstone, Hungaroring, Spa. The next 3 circuits behind Austria do not forgive errors, and require a solid platform from which to build consistent results. Austria, then, is more than a test, it is a filter. It is the time where Ferrari must confirm that he is still a serious contender, or resign to fight for crumbs in a season where McLaren and Mercedes have gained rhythm, and Red Bull is still dangerous, even in his worst form. The psychological impact is also key. Lewis Hamilton needs to meet the role of the protagonist. Until now, its passage through Ferrari has been more an adaptation process than a revolution. Austria can mark the moment where this process becomes domain, where his experience, his ability to read the evolution of the track back after return, and his instinct in changing conditions, are finally backed by a machine capable of following his rhythm. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, will look for a personal redemption at the house of Red Bull after a start of the season where mistakes and bad fortune have joined a little cooperative car. Austria can be your answer. And on the political level of paddock, a strong result in Austria would give Fred Vasseur the necessary support to advance with the internal reforms that he has begun to implement since his arrival. The team leader knows that he needs results now, not at the end of the year. Because each career without tangible evolution erodes the credibility of its project. Austria could become his main argument to sustain the current address, protect their engineers, and consolidate the technical course of the team. Ultimately, what Ferrari gets or stops getting in Spielberg will not be just one more statistic in books. It will be a message, a war cry, or a capitulation signal. In a championship as tight as the 2025, where McLaren leads with confidence, Mercedes resurfaces with force, and Red Bull plans his counterattack, Ferrari cannot afford to be invisible. It must be imposed technically and symbolically, and Austria is its stage to do so. There, every return will be a statement. Each sector an opportunity to rewrite history. And every decision, a bet with the future of the rampant Cavallino at stake. At this point, the inevitable question arises on its own. Will this update the turning point that Ferrari needs to transform its season, or are we simply before another experiment to disappoint? It is not the first time that the Scuderia presents a technical solution with promises of radical change, and recent history has taught us that these promises are not always fulfilled. What is at stake in Austria is more than a flat background. It is the credibility of a technical structure, the confidence of 2 of the best pilots in the world, and the patience of a global hobby that has been waiting for the rebirth of a legend too long. This change is not an isolated event, it is part of a major process. And like any process in Formula One, it is measured in thousands, in details that the common public does not see but define everything. The flat background represents an address, a way of thinking, a design philosophy. And with him, Ferrari is betting to correct not only technical instability, but a narrative that threatens to become chronic, that of the eternal candidate who never manages to consolidate as a dominator. And this is where you enter. Because Formula One is not just speed, data, or aerodynamics. It is also passion, memory, loyalty, doubt. Do you think this technical step has the potential to return Ferrari to the top of the podium? Or do you think we continue before a team that reacts late without long-term vision? Do you trust that Hamilton and Leclerc will know how to capitalize on this opportunity if the car responds? Or is it too late to save a campaign that began with the left foot? This type of debates is what feeds the community of Formula One. Is what makes us analyze beyond the times by return, ask what decisions will mark the championship, which pilots will know how to adapt, which teams will have the courage to change before it is inevitable. I invite you to leave your opinion. What do you think of this Ferrari bet? Are we facing a master play or a last desperate letter? Will this flat background be remembered as the beginning of the return or as another chapter in Maranello's frustration?